What up? Brent here. It is Saturday morning, 8-ish, 9-ish, I'm not even sure. I'm up in the free state of North Georgia, also known as Western North Carolina, but it's really the free state of North Georgia. Anyway, hope y'all are doing good. Here back with a Brant with a libertarian twist. So what we're dealing with now in this election really is a battle of multiple philosophies. On the extreme left, you have the Bernie Sanders crowd, which are Pollyanna, free shit mafia types that they want everything provided by the government. They don't really think about where the government gets the resources from, and they don't like the people that have succeeded extremely well economically. They think they've automatically done it exploitatively. They didn't earn it. It's not fair. It's inequality. Yada yada yada. And really, what they want is free stuff like healthcare and education and all the stuff that they don't want to pay for themselves or they can't pay for, but they really could figure out how to pay for it if they learned the economic skills and marketable skills. They could become high income earners, or certainly earn enough income to pay for everything they'd want. But they just envy and they do not like those that have succeeded more than them. They think they're evil. They vilify them and they want to stick it to them. And Bernie Sanders channels that rage and that dislike and that dissatisfaction. And he says, I'm going to give you all this stuff you want, and I'm going to make these evil, exploitative people that got really rich, and that's what made you poor, and we're going to make these people pay for it. They don't pay their fair share, right? By the way, the wealthy in this country pay almost everything. If you look at the IRS's numbers, going back as far as income tax has been paid, I think the top 20% of income earners in this country pay like 98 point something percent of all of the income tax. Now, if you want to tell me that 20 people out of every 100 are paying 98 point whatever percent and they're not paying their fair share, I don't know what kind of math you studied, or if you passed basic math, or certainly not basic logic, because when a small minority is paying 98 point something percent of all the income taxes, that is pretty much more than, that's not just their fair share, that's more than their fair share. So anyway, you got the Bernie Sanders crowd. You have the Trump crowd. They're just sick and tired of the Bernie Sanders crowd and the left-leaning, politically correct, free shit mafia. They're just sick of it. They're sick and tired of being told, you can't say this, you can't do that, you're bad, you're evil. And Trump comes in there and is just so politically incorrect. He offends everybody, but the people that he offends would be offended by almost anything. Trump just channels that. The same way Bernie Sanders channels the hatred of those that succeed, the hatred of capitalism, the hatred of Western values, basically. Trump basically channels that and say, no, you guys aren't bad, and all these people that vilified you, they're sons of bitches, and we're going to stick it to them, right? So you got two crowds. You got the Trump crowd a lot of times that just want to stick it to the Bernie crowd, and the Bernie crowd that wants to stick it to the Trump crowd. And then you have a relatively large and growing, I would call it a minority. I don't know. I'm not really sure how big it probably is. Those are the independent libertarian thinkers that are just sick of all of them, like me, who view taxation as theft, because that's what it is, if you really think about it. We want to be left alone to do what we want, how we want it, when we want it, as long as we don't harm the person or the property of others. I mean, that's all we want. We want to keep what we earn. We want to be able to smoke what we want, when we want to smoke it. We want to be able to buy and sell what we want without interference. I'm really more of a of a minimal state leaning towards anarchist. And anarchy is not this negative word a lot of people are associated with. All anarchy means is without rulers. It's self-rule. And that's how you should be living your life. You don't need somebody telling you what you can and can't do, that you got to pay. You got to go to work, and however you earn your income, you got to fork over a certain percentage of the fruits of your labor to, whether it's a dictator, or a king, or a democracy. We don't think we owe anybody anything, really, except for leaving them alone, letting them live their lives as they see fit. But I certainly don't have the obligation to be threatened at gunpoint with laws and taxes, and be told that I have to pay for what you want, because that's just nonsense. I think this crowd is growing. I don't think a lot of people. I think a lot of people intuitively feel like this. They just haven't studied it. But when I have talks with a very large percentage of people that I meet online and in person, they get this. They're pretty libertarian. I think most people are libertarian by nature, except for the nut jobs on the left and the Bernie crowd that just don't think anything through. They're just purely emotional, collectivist. They don't understand history, that their philosophy has been tried countless times in numerous countries all over this planet, and it's never worked. It doesn't ever deliver the goods that the charlatans like Bernie Sanders or Lenin's or Hugo Chavez's or Fidel Castro's. They never deliver the goods that they promise. They just absolutely destroy the economies in the countries that they take over. They just do. Prove me wrong. You're going to point to the socialist paradises in Scandinavia? Well, guess what? Patna. Those are not socialist nations. They're social welfare states, but they're not socialist. All they do, they're actually more free market capitalist than the United States is in a lot of respects. They produce a lot of wealth, but then the government redistributes it. But it's not the socialist nature of the social welfare state that is the reason they're so well. It's the free market that allows the redistribution to occur. When you just have these nonsensical, economically fallacious systems that people like Bernie Sanders preach, they don't create wealth. They just destroy it. If you study history, my Bernie friends, you'd understand this. And not just pragmatically speaking, in theory as well, socialism does not work. And a great thinker, probably the greatest free market thinker, I believe, of all time, and Ludwig von Mises. He wrote a treatise on socialism in I believe, the late 20s or early 30s, and he just absolutely eviscerated socialism in theory. He just showed it does not work, it cannot work. And it basically boils down to something called the socialist calculation problem. And nobody's ever been able to answer it. And when socialism was the big rage back then, a lot of intellectuals, once Mises wrote this, he converted a lot of intellectuals who, once they read it, they were like, the guy's right. And they realized it cannot work. To this day, the socialist economics intellectuals have never been able to answer Mises' criticism validly. So it doesn't work in practice, it doesn't work in theory. But here we are again, people believing this time it's going to be different. But that's not how science works. That's not how cause and effect works. And it ain't gonna miraculously change this time. So what do we do? I mean, I'm not going to convert you if you're a Bernie fan, because you didn't think your way into this. You felt your way into that philosophy. Trump supporters, the rabid Trump supporters, they're pretty emotional as well, honestly. They would just prefer Trump over a Bernie or anybody on the left. And I kind of understand that. Given the choice between Bernie and Trump, me personally, I prefer no government. But if I have to choose between the two, I'm taking Trump all day long and twice on Tuesday. What else? I don't have anything else to say. I'm going to smoke this cigar, and I'm going to go to sleep. And I'm going to think of something else to rant about. I hope you guys have a good weekend. If you want to leave some criticism or comments and you want to get a debate going on this page, bring it. And if you didn't know, yo ass better call somebody.